Republicans tearing into DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas during days of hearings on Capitol Hill. Yesterday, Senator Josh Hawley read from a New York Times report sounding the alarm about the Democrats' policies leading to sex slavery and inhuman illegal child labor right here in the United States.
What we do is we enforce the law. But let me just say this.
But you're not.
It is stunning to me, stunning, to hear you say that the prior administration reunited children with their parents.
Oh, I see. So this is their fault?
When in fact...
you're not going to take any responsibility for the indentured servitude and exploitation of children that is happening on your watch. A moment ago, you were crowing about the fact that you treated children so well, and yet we find tens of thousands of children who are forced to work as slaves because of your policies, and you turn around and blame a prior administration. Mr. Secretary, this is par for the course for you.
They're so loving, aren't they, those Democrats? Here to weigh in, Pinal County, Arizona Sheriff and Arizona Senate candidate Mark Lamb. Also with us, retired Milwaukee County, Wisconsin Sheriff, Newsmax contributor, and author of Cop Under Fire, David Clarke. Gentlemen, fantastic to see you as always. Sheriff Lamb, we start with you. Democrats like to pretend their lawless open border policies are, quote, humanitarian. Meanwhile, children are forced into trafficking and slave labor in the United States. China's poison, fentanyl, is flowing like a river, and we haven't even gotten to the threat to every American life from over 1 million unknown bad actors who have slipped right in, right because the Democrats don't do their job. Do you think this it is time, or who do you think is to blame for no accountability for what the Democrats are doing? Who's to blame for this?
Well, ultimately, Joe Biden is to blame because he's at the top of at the White House. But clearly, Mayorkas shares some responsibility in that blame. They want to blame President Trump. They want to blame everybody else. But the reality is they accepted the job. They were supposed to secure the borders, protect the American people, ensure our domestic tranquility, and they have failed to do that. And now we have women being enslaved into sex trafficking, children being trafficked for sex and used as child labor. We have American families losing loved ones to the fentanyl poisonings every day. It is their responsibility, and they should be they should be taking responsibility for it and should be held accountable for their failure to do so.
Yeah, that's a Democrat's idea of humanitarian. Sheriff Clarke, Chicago leaders continue to defend the riots and the looting over the weekend. State Senator Ralph Peters signaled a thumbs up to crime, tweeting, quote, "I would look at this behavior of these young people as a political act and statement. It's a mass protest against poverty and segregation." I say, what segregation? In Atlanta, for example, a GovEd school separated black and white students to create, safe spaces. They're doing the same on college campuses. The only segregation in this country I see is coming from left-wingers. Sheriff, will you address that? And then the fact that when leftists riot, Democrats call it a protest, but when conservatives protest, leftists call it a riot.
Well, for a number of years now, the Democrats have changed the meaning of words. Now a protest, I guess, includes a riot, and then vice versa. So you look at what was happening in Chicago every night, and the videos out there, roving bands of thugs that have taken over a retail area in downtown Chicago, wreaking havoc, threatening people, attacking people, assaulting people, shoppers, and just people who are visiting the city and visiting the Loop area. As you indicated, they called January 6th an insurrection, but then when it comes to these all have been going on since the ugly days of Ferguson, Missouri. But they're straight up riots. They're dangerous, causing property damage, arsons, for heaven's sakes, millions of dollars in property damage, and also millions of dollars in property loss. So they can call it what they want, but, it's kind of like a rose by any other name. It smells just as sweet.
Yeah. Well, don't forget what happened in Tennessee. I mean, Democrats can storm a Capitol building. Oh, that's not an insurrection. It's just the double standard. I'm just so sick of it. I want to hear from both of you guys on this one. The left is going wild over these two tragic wrongful shootings. 16-year-old Ralph Yarl went to the wrong house to pick up his brothers, rang the doorbell twice, and was shot. He's been released from the hospital and is recovering at home. 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis was shot and killed when she pulled into the wrong driveway by mistake. Both these incidents, as I said, are horrible. But the folks at CNN and MSNBS, they're outraged by these shootings, but they've seemed to have completely dropped the most recent left-wing shooters who gunned down Christians and innocent folks at a bank. Sheriff Lamb, what's the best way to push back against a clearly biased press when covering these types of incidents?
By doing exactly what we're doing. We got to speak out and say, look, this isn't about being able to stand your ground. This isn't about guns. This is about American citizens losing faith in the rule of law across this country because the federal government cannot do their job. They continue to undermine police officers. They continue to attack us, which makes people feel very insecure. We're seeing a rise in crime. Look at Chicago. You know, Sheriff Clarke so eloquently talked about it. You know, they talk about poverty and segregation. The only party responsible for, throughout history of this country, responsible for poverty and segregation has been the Democrat Party, and they continue to do it. And now we're seeing their efforts to undermine the rule of law, and then we start to see people taking the law into their own hands because they don't feel safe. So this is a real reflection on the rule of law, Chris. And look, that's part of the reason why I'm running. Not just the border crisis, the rule of law. That's why I've thrown my hat in for the U.S. Senate here in Arizona. Please go support me at sherifflambforsenate.com. We need help.
Sheriff Clarke, I want you to take a swing at the press here and their duplicity, how they magnify certain shootings and certain incidents that only benefit the left while they ignore the damage being done to the right. I mean, I think they're undermining their own credibility and America's trust in them, are they not?
I don't think they're undermining their own credibility. They don't have any credibility, for heaven's sakes. They ignore the real problem that goes on in every major urban city across America on a daily basis, and that's the black-on-black crime. This weekend in the city of Chicago, 32 shot, leaving 11 dead. That goes on in Chicago every single weekend, yet we don't hear about it anymore. They want to cherry-pick these two tragic cases here. Those are ongoing investigations, and I want to wait until some more facts come out. But as you indicated, tragic, that's all it is. But the real problem in America is the daily gun violence in these urban centers, piss-poor urban policies, failed urban policies that lead to this sort of behavior, revolving door of justice, that sort of thing. Those are the real problems in these urban centers. Of course, the liberal media doesn't want to talk about those.
Sheriffs Lamb and Clarke, gentlemen, thank you very much for serving the community, and thank you very much for your time today.